back in the Daleville Cemetery to show everybody what's going on here at this point. I've seen a lot of changes and a lot of development here in Botetourt over the last 40 years. Some has caused massive ecological disasters. This one here in Daleville on the banks of Tinker Creek is causing one of the biggest environmental impacts to the county that we've seen. In 2017, a Cloverdale company contaminated Tinker Creek and caused the largest fish kill in the history of the Roanoke River. Over 40,000 fish died, and the cleanup is still underway. That river feeds the Spring Hollow Reservoir, a primary source of drinking water for Roanoke County. It is important to realize that Tinker Creek feeds directly into the Roanoke River, and what happens here affects a lot of people in the Roanoke Valley. Botetourt leaders need to think outside of the box and realize today's quick money in the hands of outside developers is not an economic strategy. Anytime we follow trends, we're setting ourselves up for a 20-year cycle of economic stagnation, and that is not sustainable. We need to seriously ask ourselves, how is this destruction and development benefiting us? This project here at the old Berthold property, as it is known locally, is having one of the biggest impacts on the ecology and the environment that I've seen, and I've seen many. I need to also point out the fact the property does drain directly into Tinker Creek, and we have no protection for the creek itself. The apartments are planned to be very close by. This area is planned for dense development, and traffic concerns are just part of the issue. This development potentially represents another historic loss to the county that has been unrecognized or ignored altogether. The Daleville area is not only very historic, the cemetery contains the graves of more than 1,100 of your relatives, ancestors, and friends. It is important to remember, too, that the first court in Botetourt County was here at a site directly behind me, at the home of Robert Breckinridge in 1770, and this is where the county has its roots. It was not until Fincastle was established until 1772, 2 years later, that Fincastle became the county seat. There are three important patriarchs that are buried here: Christian Kinsey, Christian Gish, and Christian Neininger. Kinsey and Gish were Revolutionary War soldiers, but have no historic designations whatsoever. All of them were my direct ancestors. They all came from the Palatinate area of what is now Germany. This fertile farmland along the Rhine River was decimated and devastated by the effects of years of political turmoil, disease, famine, and the 30-Year War. It was this desolate wasteland that our three Christians came of age. They made their way across the Atlantic on tiny wooden ships to find their paradise here in Daleville. And 200 years later, their lands are now being desecrated again, only this time by politicians and developers rather than more. Christian Gish's 1791 log home is still standing in remarkably good shape. There are no historic markers or protections of any kind in Botetourt County that stop it from being demolished if it ever comes to that. Indeed, the oldest house in Botetourt County is the McDonald House out on Catawba Road, and there are no plans to preserve or protect it. My concern now is that you and I have a vested interest in what happens here. No, the cemetery is not being removed, it is not being razed. But we have seen around the county what happens to historic sites located beside of massive developments. Cemeteries become playgrounds for kids that have no green space or trees or lawns to play in, and become threatened. Endangered 200-year-old tombstones here are extremely fragile, as you can see. A retaining wall and fence may not be enough. We have plenty of examples of South Peak in Roanoke and elsewhere in the state to see that interlocking block designs of modern retaining walls are not effective and not a permanent solution. It is obvious the county leaders have no concern for our historic resources, structures, or preservation efforts. I'm not even sure they recognize them. We have only the town of Fincastle to see that.